Welcome to Learning Life Content. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Your support helps us grow and motivates us to bring you more fascinating and enriching stories. History remembers conquerors like Alexander the Great, men whose names echo through the centuries, immortalized in marble and myth. But history often overlooks those who dared to stand in their path, those whose courage shaped the fate of nations. Alexander's legendary march from the heart of Greece to the distant frontiers of India is a tale of ambition and conquest, but equally legendary is the resistance he encountered on the banks of the mighty Hydaspes River. In the vibrant tapestry of ancient India, one name stands tall: Porus, king of the Pauravas, a ruler whose valor would test the world's greatest conqueror. Porus was not merely a footnote in Alexander's saga, he was a sovereign ruler descended from a proud and ancient lineage that traced its roots to the legendary lunar dynasty or Chandravansha, revered in Indian tradition. While many neighboring kings submitted to Alexander's might, Porus chose the path of resistance, rallying his people and forging alliances with other local rulers. His story is not one of simple defeat, but of extraordinary bravery, strategic acumen, and unwavering resolve in the face of overwhelming odds. The Paurava kingdom, nestled between the Jhelum and Chenab rivers in present-day Punjab, was a land of prosperity, protected by its fertile geography, and a formidable army renowned for its war elephants, beasts that would become legendary in the annals of warfare. Porus himself was said to be a giant among men, standing over 7 feet tall, his presence on the battlefield inspiring awe and fear alike. Ancient Greek historians, including Arrian and Diodorus, marveled at his stature and regal bearing. He was more than an obstacle. He was a king in his own right, respected by his subjects and feared by his enemies. His court was a center of culture and learning, where Sanskrit scholars and warriors alike found patronage. This story pulls Porus from Alexander's shadow, revealing a formidable leader whose courage and wisdom shaped the destiny of his people. We'll explore his kingdom, his alliances with other Indian rulers like Taxiles, and his bold defiance in the face of a foreign invader. And we'll relive the legendary Battle of the Hydaspes, where Porus's war elephants clashed with Macedonian phalanxes, and the fate of empires hung in the balance. It's a tale of courage, mutual respect, and the meeting of two worlds, East and West, on the blood-soaked plains of Punjab. Even in defeat, Porus's dignity and valor won the admiration of Alexander himself, who, according to legend, asked Porus how he wished to be treated. Porus's reply, like a king, became a symbol of unyielding honor. Porus's story deserves to be told and remembered, not just as a tale of resistance, but as a symbol of the indomitable spirit that defines true leadership. He was not just a chapter in someone else's story. Ancient Indian sources, though fragmentary, remember him as a just ruler, a patron of the arts, and a unifier of his people. He was a king who stood tall, literally and figuratively, when it mattered most, inspiring generations to come. His legacy is a testament to the power of resistance, the value of honor, and the enduring impact of a leader who refused to yield. In the face of the world's greatest conqueror, Porus chose to fight for his people, his land, and his legacy, never surrendering, even when the odds seemed impossible. His tale is a reminder that true greatness lies not in conquest but in courage, conviction, and the ability to inspire respect, even from one's enemies. Let us remember Porus, the forgotten king who refused to bow, whose story continues to inspire as a beacon of resistance and honor in the chronicles of history. Porus, also known as Puru, was born into a noble and ancient lineage that traced its roots to the legendary Puru tribe, one of the most prominent clans mentioned in the Rig Veda, the oldest of India's sacred texts. The Purus were not just warriors, they were considered the very foundation of the Vedic civilization, with their ancestors believed to have played a pivotal role in shaping early Indian society and polity. As a Kshatriya, the warrior class, Porus was raised amidst tales of valor and duty, trained from childhood to protect, lead and fight for his people. His education was not limited to martial skills. He was also schooled in statecraft, philosophy and the sacred rituals that bound his dynasty to the divine. His ascension to the throne was not merely a matter of inheritance, but a fulfillment of destiny. Porus was the rightful heir to a kingdom that controlled vital trade routes along the Indus and Jhelum rivers, making Paurava a linchpin in the politics and economy of the region. Porus strengthened his realm through wise governance, forging alliances with neighbouring kingdoms and investing in the prosperity of his cities. His reputation for justice and strength earned him the unwavering respect of his people and the wary attention of his rivals. The true strength of Paurava, however, lay in its formidable army. Porus commanded a force renowned for its discipline and innovation, well-drilled infantry, swift cavalry skilled in both archery and close combat, and deadly chariots that could outmaneuver most adversaries on the battlefield. But the most awe-inspiring element of his military might was his corps of nearly 200 war elephants. Massive beasts, clad in armour, trained for years to withstand the chaos of battle. These elephants were not only symbols of royal power, but also strategic assets, capable of breaking enemy lines and sowing panic among even the bravest foes. These armoured giants were, in many ways, the living tanks of their era, able to crush enemy formations, trample fortifications and spread terror with their mere presence. Ancient Greek historians would later write in awe of the discipline and ferocity of Porus's war elephants. Porus was not a distant ruler. He was a hands-on commander, often seen at the front lines, rallying his soldiers and sharing in their hardships. His leadership inspired fierce loyalty, and his presence on the battlefield was said to embolden his troops and strike fear into the hearts of his enemies. When news of Alexander the Great's approach reached the kingdom of Paurava, Porus did not hesitate or falter. He convened his council, gathered intelligence, and began to mobilize his forces with remarkable speed and efficiency. He knew his army was ready, and his people stood firmly behind him. The entire kingdom, from the highest noble to the humblest villager, prepared to defend their land and their king. Porus prepared to meet the world's greatest conqueror with the full force of his kingdom, his army, his people, and the legacy of his ancestors. For Porus, this was not just a battle for territory. He was defending a legacy that stretched back centuries, a lineage that had shaped the destiny of the land and its people. His army was a living reflection of his own strength, discipline, and unyielding resolve. Each soldier carried not just weapons, but the weight of history and honor. The stage was set for a confrontation that would echo through the ages. A clash not only of armies, but of legacies, cultures, and destinies. As Alexander the Great swept relentlessly through Asia, his armies seemed unstoppable. City after city fell, and many rulers, fearing annihilation, chose submission over resistance. The world watched as the Macedonian juggernaut advanced, reshaping the political landscape of the ancient world. Among these rulers was Ambi of Taxila, a shrewd and ambitious rival of Porus. Ambi welcomed Alexander with open arms, hoping to use the invader's formidable power to settle old scores and secure his own throne. Taxila, a city renowned for its wealth and learning, became a staging ground for Alexander's ambitions in India. Alexander, accustomed to swift victories and eager submission, expected the same from Porus. He sent envoys demanding tribute, allegiance, and the surrender of Porus's kingdom, standard terms for those who wished to avoid destruction. But Porus's response would become the stuff of legend. He refused to bow, declaring that he would meet Alexander not as a supplicant, but as a warrior, ready to defend his land, his people, and his honor. This act of defiance was extraordinary, a direct challenge to the world's greatest conqueror. Porus's refusal was not just political, it was deeply personal, rooted in a code of honor that valued freedom above life itself. In his royal court, Porus proclaimed that his kingdom was not for sale and his freedom was not negotiable. He famously told Alexander's envoy, "I will give him what befits a king, battle." Porus would rather face annihilation than accept subjugation. His army, though outnumbered and facing the legendary Macedonian phalanx, prepared for a fight that would echo through history. Alexander, unaccustomed to such bold resistance, was both intrigued and enraged. He saw in Porus a rare adversary, one who would not be cowed by reputation or force. In Porus, Alexander recognized a spirit that mirrored his own, a warrior's pride that refused to bow. The challenge was accepted, and the stage was set for a confrontation unlike any other. The Macedonian army, renowned for its discipline and innovation, marched to the banks of the Hydaspes River. Here, the fate of two great kings and the future of India would be decided. Porus's refusal to submit set the stage for one of history's most dramatic confrontations. The river itself would become a symbol of the divide between submission and defiance. This was not just a clash of armies, but a battle of wills, of civilizations, and of destinies. The outcome would reverberate far beyond the battlefield. Porus stood as the last barrier between Alexander and the untold riches of India. His kingdom, straddling the vital trade routes, was the gateway to the subcontinent. The world watched with bated breath as two titans prepared to collide. Even the elements seemed to sense the coming storm. This was more than a battle. It was a test of honor, courage, and resolve. Legends would be forged in the crucible of war. Porus's stand would become legendary, inspiring generations to come. His name would echo in the annals of history as the king who dared to defy Alexander. The riverbank awaited the storm, a storm not just of nature but of destiny, as two indomitable wills prepared to clash. The Hydaspes River, swollen to a raging torrent by the relentless monsoon rains, became the stage for one of antiquity's most legendary confrontations. A battle that would echo through the centuries. On the eastern bank, King Porus, a ruler famed for his valor and towering stature, assembled his formidable army. He chose his ground with meticulous care, knowing the river itself could be both shield and snare. Porus's infantry, drawn from the fierce warriors of Punjab, formed a solid phalanx. His cavalry, skilled in swift maneuvers, guarded the flanks. Chariots, a symbol of royal power, stood ready, while at the front his war elephants, some said to number over 200, loomed like living fortresses, their tusks tipped with iron and their riders armed with javelins and bows. Across the river, Alexander's Macedonians, veterans of campaigns from Greece to Persia, arrived to face a new and terrifying challenge. Many had never seen elephants in battle, and tales of their might spread unease through the ranks. The river was a deadly barrier, swollen and unpredictable. But it was Porus's elephants, towering, armored and trained for war, that truly unnerved the Greeks. These beasts, bred for battle, could trample men and horses alike, and their thunderous charge was said to shake the earth. A direct assault across the river under the watchful eyes of Porus's archers and elephants would have been suicide. The Hydaspes was not just a physical obstacle. It was a gauntlet of death. Alexander, ever the master strategist, began a campaign of deception. For days he marched his troops up and down the riverbank, feinting at various crossing points, staging noisy preparations, and keeping Porus in a constant state of alert. This psychological warfare was as crucial as any sword or spear. Porus, wary of Alexander's cunning, mirrored every move. He spread his forces thin, dispatching detachments to guard every possible crossing. The tension along the river was palpable, as both armies waited for the other to make a fatal mistake. Alexander's patience was legendary. He wore down his opponent, forcing Porus's men to remain on constant alert, exhausting them with sleepless nights and false alarms. The Macedonian king was waiting for the perfect moment, a lapse, a storm, a chance. That moment arrived on a storm-lashed night, when thunder drowned out the sounds of movement and lightning turned the riverbank into a ghostly battlefield. Leaving a decoy force to keep Porus distracted, Alexander handpicked his finest troops, companion cavalry, hypaspists and archers, and led them upstream under the cover of darkness and torrential rain. Few realized that the king himself was among them, risking all on a single maneuver. At a wooded island where the river split and the current was less fierce, they began their perilous crossing. The water was icy, the footing treacherous, and the risk of discovery ever present. If discovered mid-crossing, Alexander's force would be trapped between the river and Porus's main army. Vulnerable, isolated and doomed. The fate of the campaign hung by a thread, but Alexander was no stranger to risk. He gambled everything on this bold maneuver, trusting in the discipline and courage of his men and in the element of surprise. As dawn broke, the tension was unbearable. Both armies knew that the coming hours would decide the fate of kingdoms. The air was thick with anticipation, fear, and the scent of rain-soaked earth. The clash of titans was about to begin. Macedonian discipline and innovation against Indian valor and the thunder of war elephants. Few battles in history would match its drama or its stakes. By day's end, the Hydaspes would run red with blood and legend, forever marking the place where East met West in a storm of steel and courage. In the dead of night, under a sky roiling with thunderclouds, Alexander the Great orchestrated one of history's most audacious maneuvers, the crossing of the Hydaspes River. The river, swollen by monsoon rains, surged with a ferocity that would have deterred most armies. But Alexander, ever the tactician, saw opportunity where others saw only peril. Battling against the relentless current and sheets of rain, Alexander's elite hypaspists and companion cavalry ferried across in small boats and makeshift rafts. The darkness was pierced only by flashes of lightning, revealing the grim determination on the soldiers' faces as they clung to their gear, some even swimming alongside the horses. Many nearly drowned, and the river's roar drowned out shouted commands. On the opposite bank, King Porus kept a vigilant watch. Though Alexander's decoy camp, complete with noisy fires and feigned activity, was meant to mislead, Porus was no fool. He had stationed scouts and patrols along the river, wary of a surprise attack, but the storm's fury masked the Macedonian movement. Soon, soaked and breathless scouts galloped in, reporting that a Macedonian force had managed to cross several miles upstream, near a wooded island that Alexander had chosen for its cover. This was a lesser-known crossing point, rarely used due to its treacherous currents and thick undergrowth. Believing this might be a diversion, Porus dispatched his son, Prince Aemar, with a contingent of cavalry and chariots to intercept the Macedonians. The Indian chariots, symbols of royal power, rumbled out into the storm, their wheels already sinking into the sodden earth. But the monsoon had turned the ground into a quagmire. The heavy chariots, so effective on dry plains, became mired in the mud, their horses floundering. In contrast, Alexander's cavalry, trained for speed and maneuverability, swept around the bogged-down chariots, launching a devastating attack. Prince Aemar fought valiantly, rallying his men amidst chaos, but he was struck down in the melee. His death sent shockwaves through the Pauravan ranks, sapping morale and leaving Porus with a grievous personal loss. Realizing the scale of Alexander's incursion, Porus quickly redeployed his main force. He ordered his war elephants and infantry to pivot away from the decoy camp and march toward the open plain, determined to confront the Macedonians head-on. Porus left a smaller detachment to guard the original crossing, wary of further tricks. Meanwhile, he assembled his elephants, towering beasts armored for war, and massed his infantry, forming a formidable battle line. Alexander's ruse had forced Porus to fight on ground not of his choosing, but the Indian king was determined to make a stand. As dawn broke, the rain eased, revealing two great armies arrayed on the plain. The fate of kingdoms would be decided here, on ground chosen by Alexander's cunning. The storm had not only tested the resolve of men, but had also set the stage for one of antiquity's most legendary clashes. A battle that would echo through history as the meeting of two titans on the banks of the Hydaspes. Porus meticulously arranged his formidable army, infantry forming the solid core, mighty elephants at the vanguard, and swift cavalry deployed on the wings. Each elephant was not only a beast of war, but a symbol of royal power, adorned with elaborate armor and painted in dazzling colors, their tusks fitted with deadly iron spikes. Porus himself rode atop the largest and most magnificent elephant, commanding the battlefield with a panoramic view. The mahouts, or elephant drivers, had spent days preparing these giants, feeding them special diets and training them to respond to complex signals in the chaos of war. Alexander, ever the tactician, advanced with caution. He had never faced such a terrifying sight. Towering elephants, some over 9 feet tall at the shoulder, their armor glinting in the sun. He avoided a direct charge, wary of the havoc these beasts could unleash. Instead, his cavalry swept around the flanks, while horse archers and javelin throwers harassed the Indian lines, sowing confusion and disorder among the ranks. The Indian formation, stretched thin and battered by relentless missile fire, began to collapse from the outside in. Sensing the critical moment, Porus gave the order. The elephants surged forward, urged on by their mahouts, wielding sharp hooks and prodding them into a furious charge. The earth trembled as the massive beasts thundered ahead, their trumpeting cries echoing across the plain. They crashed into the Macedonian phalanx, shattering spears and scattering men in their path. For a brief, electrifying moment, the elephants broke through the enemy lines, spreading terror and chaos. Many Macedonian soldiers had never seen such creatures and fled in panic. But Alexander's disciplined troops quickly adapted. On his command, they opened lanes in their formation, allowing the elephants to pass harmlessly through. As the elephants surged forward, Macedonian soldiers attacked from the sides and rear, targeting the animals' vulnerable legs and flanks with axes and spears. They aimed for the mahouts, knowing that without their drivers, the elephants would panic. As the mahouts fell, the elephants became uncontrollable, turning in confusion and rampaging back through their own lines. The greatest strength of Porus's army, his war elephants, now became its greatest weakness as the panicked beasts trampled friend and foe alike. Chaos reigned. The battlefield dissolved into confusion, with elephants crushing soldiers underfoot, their trumpeting drowned out only by the screams of the wounded. The battle descended into brutal close combat. Swords clashed, spears thrust, and the ground was slick with blood and mud. Through it all, Porus fought with unmatched valor, refusing to yield even as the tide turned against him. Wounded and surrounded, he continued to rally his men, his courage becoming legendary. The fate of his kingdom hung in the balance as the dust settled and the outcome of this epic clash remained uncertain. A testament to the fury and tragedy of war elephants in ancient battle. The Battle of the Hydaspes raged for hours beneath a monsoon sky, the riverbanks slick with mud and blood. Both armies suffered devastating losses. Alexander's Macedonian phalanx clashed fiercely with Porus's war elephants and chariots, the air thick with the cries of men and the clash of steel. Despite being gravely wounded by arrows and javelins, Porus refused to abandon his men. He remained atop his towering elephant, a symbol of unyielding resolve, rallying his troops and issuing commands even as the tide of battle turned against him. As the Macedonian cavalry encircled his battered forces, Porus's army, exhausted and outnumbered, began a reluctant retreat. The battlefield was littered with the fallen, and the once mighty Indian host was forced to withdraw, leaving behind a legacy of valor. Alexander, who had never before faced such formidable resistance in his campaigns, was deeply impressed by Porus's courage and tenacity. He dispatched his trusted envoys, including the historian Onesicritus, to negotiate with the defeated king and persuade him to surrender with honor. Porus, though battered and bloodied, agreed to meet Alexander face to face. He stood tall before the conqueror, his wounds a testament to his bravery, refusing to show any sign of submission or fear. During their legendary encounter, Alexander asked Porus how he wished to be treated. Porus's reply, like a king by a king, has echoed through history as a declaration of dignity and self-respect. This moment, recorded by ancient chroniclers like Arrian and Plutarch, became a symbol of royal honor. Moved by Porus's regal bearing and noble words, Alexander not only restored his kingdom but also granted him additional territory, an unprecedented gesture for the Macedonian conqueror, who rarely showed such clemency to defeated foes. Porus was appointed as a satrap or governor of the expanded region. He became one of Alexander's most trusted allies in India, governing with wisdom and fairness. Ancient sources note that Porus's loyalty and administrative skill helped stabilize the newly conquered lands. The mutual respect between Alexander and Porus became legendary. It was said that Alexander often spoke of Porus's valor to his own generals, and Porus in turn honored the Macedonian king as a worthy adversary. Porus's unwavering spirit and character not only secured his people's future, but also inspired generations. His subjects celebrated his return, seeing in him the embodiment of true kingship, undaunted even in defeat. In the quiet dawn after the battle, the empty field bore silent witness to a deeper truth. True victory is not always won by force of arms, but by the strength of character and the respect earned even from one's greatest rival. After the fierce battle on the banks of the Hydaspes, Porus, once Alexander's formidable adversary, became a trusted ally, governing his lands with remarkable autonomy under Macedonian suzerainty. Alexander, impressed by Porus's valor and statesmanship, not only restored his kingdom, but even granted him additional territories, making him one of the most powerful satraps in the region. But the sudden and mysterious death of Alexander in Babylon sent shockwaves through his vast empire, plunging the Indian territories into uncertainty and chaos. The once unified command structure began to unravel, and the local populations grew restless under foreign rule. As the empire fractured, Porus found himself caught between warring Macedonian factions and ambitious local rulers. His position, once secure, became increasingly precarious as rival generals vied for control over the rich lands of Punjab. The Macedonian generals, especially Eudemus and Python, viewed Porus's growing influence and popularity with suspicion. Fearing that he might rally the Indian princes against them, they began to see him as a dangerous threat to their fragile authority. Eudemus, who had been left in command of the Macedonian forces in Punjab, orchestrated a treacherous plot. Under the guise of friendship, he lured Porus into a false sense of security, then ambushed and assassinated him, ending the life of a ruler renowned for his honor and bravery. Some accounts even suggest that Porus was killed during a banquet, a victim of poison or a sudden attack. Thus, Porus, the king who had once stood tall against Alexander's might, met his end not on the battlefield but through the dark machinations of betrayal. His death was mourned by his people, who remembered him as a just and noble ruler. The assassination of Porus marked a turning point. Macedonian rule in India began to crumble, as their authority was undermined by internal strife and the loss of local support. The remnants of Greek power faded, leaving behind only scattered ruins and forgotten relics. In the wake of Porus's death, a new force emerged, Chandragupta Maurya, who would soon sweep away the last vestiges of Greek control. With the support of the people and the wisdom of Chanakya, Chandragupta established the Mauryan Empire, restoring Indian sovereignty and ensuring that Porus's legacy as a symbol of resistance would never be forgotten. Porus's legacy endures as a powerful symbol of heroic resistance and unwavering dignity in Indian history. His name echoes through the centuries, not merely as a king who stood against Alexander the Great, but as a leader whose courage and principles left an indelible mark on the subcontinent. He is remembered not for losing a battle, but for winning a moral victory that transcended the outcome of war. Despite being outnumbered and facing the formidable Macedonian phalanx, Porus's innovative use of war elephants and his strategic acumen stunned Alexander's seasoned army. His defiance inspired generations, teaching that honor and courage cannot be conquered by force. In classrooms and folklore, Porus is celebrated as a paragon of valor. His story passed down as a lesson in resilience and self-respect. The Battle of the Hydaspes sobered the Macedonians, halting Alexander's eastward expansion and shaping the course of Indian and world history. Ancient Greek historians, including Arrian and Plutarch, wrote admiringly of Porus's bravery, noting that Alexander himself was deeply impressed by the Indian king's stature and spirit. Porus's story became legend, especially in Punjab, where he is celebrated as a hero and a symbol of regional pride. Annual festivals, folk songs and public monuments keep his memory alive, inspiring new generations to honor their heritage. His famous reply, "Treat me as a king," epitomizes dignity and self-respect. This legendary exchange, recorded by ancient chroniclers, has become a touchstone for leadership and honor, cited in literature and speeches across centuries. He lost the field but won the respect of his enemy and a place of honor in history. Alexander, moved by Porus's valor, not only spared his life, but reinstated him as ruler, expanding his territory. A rare gesture that underscored the mutual respect between two great leaders. Porus stands as a symbol for all who face overwhelming odds, embodying the spirit of resistance and the belief that true strength lies in conviction. True greatness is not just about conquest, but about standing for one's principles, even in the face of insurmountable adversity. Porus's legacy is a testament to the enduring power of integrity and moral courage. Porus was more than a forgotten king. He was a warrior, a patriot, and a symbol of unyielding spirit whose story continues to inspire movements for justice and freedom. His legacy is a timeless tale of bravery, honor, and the eternal fight for freedom, one that lives on in the hearts of those who cherish the ideals of justice and resilience. Porus's name remains etched in history, a beacon for all who dare to stand tall against the tides of fate. Thank you for watching Learning Life content. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us grow and motivates us to bring you more fascinating and enriching stories.